happy to see that Mahul has joined us. So while I am on a first name basis with all of you, he is not Mahul, he is Dr. Mahul Brahma. And his biodata runs into pages. He is an actor, he is an author of 3 books on luxury. And his day job is that of a head and chief editor of a company called mjunction, which is a Tata Group company, and it is India's largest B2B e-commerce company. So we have 2 panelists who belong to the Tata Group. Philip works for Powder Luba, which is now owned by the Tata Group, and his cousin Mahul. Working for Anil. They have never met before. So this platform is inviting. So if I may begin by asking, last time when we met, you were just Mr. Mahul. Now you are Dr. Mahul. So I would like to know what was the subject of your PhD thesis?
So first of all, my apologies that I joined late to dear panelist Anil and to the audience. I'm sorry, I had a work emergency, so I had to, was caught up there. As you know, before I come into my PhD thing, so my company, mjunction, is a Tata Group company, and we basically are into e-commerce, into B2B e-commerce, and we are the largest player in that. And we've been, innovating on e-commerce since 2001, so much before most of the e-commerce companies have ever come. And so Anil thought that this was a great combination of luxury and e-commerce in me, and that's why he thought that I should be a part of this panel. But thank you, panelists, and Sachin and Philip. I'm very happy to be on this panel with you. And Anil is a great friend and always a fantastic gentleman. So coming to my PhD thesis. So Anil, my PhD thesis is on the impact of FDI and FII on Nifty and Sensex. It's a 15-year-old study. So okay, that is my PhD thesis. As I told you that my IIM Calcutta batchmates also make fun of me in terms of I'm confused what I really want to do. So life is like that.
So great. See, you wear so many hats and you are really a multifaceted person. But I have known you as a media person who's writing columns for leading publications. Right. You're writing 3 books.
Right.
So as a matter of fact, writers in India don't get paid too much. So, so you are an authority on stock markets also. So I am sure you can put your money where your mouth is. He knows so much about watches and jewelry. So I would now request him to talk about heritage, which is very dear to him, and the mythical value of a luxury brand. And he is really good at his subject. So without further ado, Mahul, please begin.
Right. So, I'll be very quick. Typically what happens is that in my trilogy, in the Luxe trilogy, which is Decoding Lux, which is the first book, Dark Lux, and then second book, and Lux Inferno is the third book. So I have moved from non-fiction to fiction, and then something called a faction, which is a mix of fiction and fact. Now, what I have done is in all these 3 books, I have in some way or the other tried to capture this essence of brand heritage and brand legacy in different ways. Maybe in a fiction, maybe in a non-fiction. So let me just very quickly explain to you what I mean by this mythic value thing. Mythic value is a term coined by sociologist Levi Strauss, not the jeans, but Claude Levi Strauss. So, what happens is when you embody 2 contradictory elements in one, then that creates a mythic value. And because of this mythic value, we have the myths or the folklore that we keep hearing about, continuing for ages, for centuries, for generations. Similarly, luxury brands, in their heritage, they try to carve in this mythic value so that their heritage also stays on for one generation to next for centuries, okay? And that becomes their USP when they are selling to you. So let me give you a non-luxury example very quickly just to make you understand the embodiment of contradiction. So if you remember, there is a sculpture by Auguste Rodin called The Thinker, La Penseur, where you'll see a ably built man is putting his hand like this and thinking. Now, Thinker is one of the famous works of Rodin because it embodies the two greatest contradictions of mankind, which is mind and body. Okay, and that's why compared to his other work, it stays. Now let's come to a luxury example. So I'll give you an example of how Cartier has been able to beautifully use its brand heritage to market itself, not only in India, especially outside India, has been able to use this mythic value to its advantage of branding. So what happened is, sometimes in 1920s, there was a Maharaja, a brown-skinned Maharaja, an Indian native, Maharaja of Patiala. He gave the largest order to Cartier. Okay. And that was for a crown necklace. So this necklace was to be worn on the crown. And with the biggest rock at that time, which is till date the seventh biggest diamond, and manufactured by my friend Mr. Sachin Jain's company, Dibias. Okay. And Cartier put together this ensemble of over 2,000 diamonds and made it, handcrafted it for the Maharaja of Patiala. And that necklace is called the Patiala necklace. Now, picture the visual. You have an Indian Maharaja in his Indian attire and adorning that necklace with that big rock in the middle. So on one side, you have a native, an Indian, and on the other side, you have an epitome of brand value in a company like Cartier. So had it been King George V, it wouldn't have created that impact. For a European king, it wouldn't have created that impact. So now please understand the two contradictions that Cartier has, encompassed in this photograph that, I have asked you to imagine of this Maharaja adorning the necklace. So one, we typically know that diamonds are girls' best friends, not men. So men and jewelry, that is one contradiction. Second contradiction is a native Maharaja and an epitome of Western brand Cartier in one. So if I've been to a few Cartier stores outside India, and I have seen that Cartier has been extremely careful in putting this photograph in most of its boutique in a very prominent position, and in a fantastic way. And the moment they identify that you're interested or you are a big ticket customer, they start narrating the story. So that's, Anil, that's how the brand heritage and the brand legacy with the mythic value has been able to live the test of time. So this is in 1920, and today we are in 2020, and still, if I'll urge my viewers to please go and check it out, Maharaja of Patiala crown necklace, and you'll see the image, and you will not be able to remove that image from your head. And so even today, when you buy a Cartier, you will connect with that lineage, that heritage, that greatness of the Maharaja's legacy. Over to you, Anil.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with you that heritage is a very important element. And in support of this statement, I will give you two examples. Now, today, because of the pandemic, physical interactions have come to a standstill. But even during this period, Sotheby's, which normally does auctions, physical auctions, they did auctions twice. On the first occasion, they had kept a Cartier bracelet, and they had expected a price ranging from 500,000 to 700. Now that particular Cartier Tutti Frutti bracelet fetched a price of $1.5 million. Similarly, Rolex RPS Gold Daytona watch, the price expected was $750,000, and it also fetched $150,000. So while heritage is very important and luxury products are assets, but you have to understand two things, that you cannot rest on your laurels. You have to keep on changing as the way your customer changes. So the point which I was trying to make is, yes, there are customers who buy those kind of products associated with heritage, but you have to keep on telling a story which will appeal to today's modern consumer.
Yes, yes.
And
of course.
in that regard, I will give you an example of Tiffany. Tiffany was very good at storytelling, and their product placement in Breakfast at Tiffany's. That movie was released way back in 1960, where most of the audience members were not even born. But it was a fantastic story, and Audrey Hepburn, and it gave a platform to not just Tiffany, but to Givenchy and other brands. So they thought, that why not use the nostalgia factor? And they did that. And they started doing breakfast at store level. They opened a cafe, and they also did a pop-up in Asia. And that strategy is working. Of course, the brand is going through a transition. And another example, as you rightly said, is the Cartier. Cartier tank watch or a Santos watch is relevant even after 100 years. So now moving on to the modern world, what do we see when we refer to the Interbrand best brands list of 2009? What will you observe? You will observe two things, that the center of gravity has shifted from Europe to America. Of course, Koreans have made a mark, and other Asian brands like Japanese brands are also there. So in that list of 100 brands, there are 7 luxury brands, but Louis Vuitton comes at number 17, Prada comes at number 100, and the first 5 brands are all American. 4 of them are not products brands at all. No, sorry, Apple is there, number 1. So the center of gravity is shifted to America, and that is more so because of the consumer. So while technology is important, more important is the psychology, because technology is only an enabler. So when we are talking about the new consumer and new technologies, who better than Sachin can share some thoughts on technology in the jewelry industry and the changing consumer? Please.
Thank you, Anil. I think the most important thing is that, we need to, I think it's already reflected in Mahul's session, but consumers are evolving, and we need to, as brand owners or industry representatives, we need to really see the future on the eyes of the consumer today. And I think one perspective that I'll give, we talk about at times millennials, younger consumers, all of these, and whether they're relevant or not relevant. Just to put it on the table, from an Indian context, December 2020, 70% of India will be millennial or younger, right? So if you're defining your future strategy, they are your customers, whatever you're doing in life, luxury, non-luxury, whatever, right? But it's important that we change the meaning of a product and a brand along with them. That's crucial. When you talk about diamonds particularly, diamonds is not all luxury. It's, it's different facets of diamonds. It means different things to diamonds, to consumers. But the essence of what a diamond does, stays same, but how we communicate, what's happening in the lives of consumers is evolving on a daily basis. So, for example, we're talking about earlier, 10, 20 years ago, you could easily have stereotypes. So in today's consumer, there are no stereotypes. You have to find your common thread, what weaves your consumers together. Consumers looking at something that's it's not prescriptive. They need to define their own personality in a certain way. And if we don't wear that hat of what a future consumer is looking at our industry, so for a very sort of a classical industry like diamonds, we will not have a future. So for us, we are always on top of what's changing in the consumer. And as you had requested me to share some video with the audience, I have a video which is it's not a brand video in terms of anything specific, but I just want to show you how we are looking at the changing consumer audience and trying to figure out what sort of puts them together, what's that thread. So if you like to show that video, Anil, it'll sort of be a little description of how we are looking at this phase of consumers.
Just hold on tight, don't let it in.
this is just a reflection of what's happening with the consumer. And I think that's what the key point I was trying to make. And the fact really, we all have to articulate in our whole life what we mean today. In the business of diamonds, people are doing some phenomenal stuff on the high end. You don't need to be sitting, as you said, that there's sort of a democratization of luxury that is now at least pan-world, not in certain parts of the world. I have partners. I can give you an example of one of our partners in Baroda who does some exceptional stuff that the world is taking notice. And that's based on creativity and their conviction of what they can create. So I think it's all over. It's about conviction of what you want to really shape up in the future, keeping in mind your consumer.
So excellent. I tend to agree with you. Now the next logical point that comes up for discussion, and I think Philip and Sachin can contribute. See, as things have evolved, the retail spaces. Now, when I'm talking about retail, it is both online as well as offline. But the physical store, for that matter, have undergone a transformation. There's a mindset change. Today, we have stores which are bigger, but brands are opening fewer stores, but bigger stores. And earlier, you used to find that stores are full of inventory because a store was supposed to distribute products. Now that mindset is changing and is moving on to distribution of experiences. So earlier, the metric of profitability or for satisfaction was the per square feet profitability and per square sales. That was what was looked at. Now the new metrics is the experience per square feet. Today, if your store is not a happening store, and if you can't take a selfie, you lost it. Because if you go to a Cartier store or any other high-end store, and if you try to take a selfie, you'll be said, please, no photo. But the new stores will allow you to take selfies and photographs. And people are willing to pay money to get themselves photographed. To give you a concrete example, when you are talking about a lot of experiences, there is a store in America, which started with New York, called Museum of Ice Cream. There, consumers have to pay $38 just to get in. And all they do is mingle with people, take photographs, taste ice cream. Now, I think Kering Group, which is the Gucci group, has become proactive. And I believe, I have not been there, though Philip can tell us, because they have a concept by the name of Gucci Garden, where they created a museum and they are also charging $8 and people are paying happily. That fees goes to charity. It's a different matter. So from exclusivity to inclusivity is the mindset change. Earlier, you'll find that Louis Vuitton was very proudly used to say that we don't allow people to come in and people have to wait and form a queue outside the stores. And look at the Apple mindset. People are waiting outside the stores and the store itself is also crowded. So there is a change. So I would like to ask both of you gentlemen about the changing retail scenario, how technology is used. I think Sachin knows quite a bit about it, about how technology can be used in physical retail. But before that, I think Philip can throw a lot of light on the luxury departmental stores like Harrods or Neiman Marcus, or there are so many of them, Galeries Lafayette, Le Bon Marché. All of them are going through trouble, and Neiman Marcus is also almost bankrupt. So what is happening there, and how do we go from this scenario? Because in China, I believe departmental stores are thriving. So can you share any ideas on the way forward?
Yeah, I think that the department stores in Europe, they have a very strong time after the Second World War until the 70s, where every year they were growing the turnover. And since the end of 70s, you can see that the turnover in the department stores is dropping down. For example, in Germany, in the 70s, the department store, the retailers they've done about 12 to 13% of the turnover. Today, it's less than 2%. So Corona was not the reason why. The Corona was only accelerating this whole process, because at that time, in the 70s, in the 60s, and the 50s, they have been alone. There was no competition. You found there in a department store everything under one roof. And therefore, they had a big USP why people have to come in. But in between, for example, take all the shopping centers. When you want to buy something, you have an easy access with your car. You go in, you can have an access to the different shops with a much wider choice, with much more product. You can be there and go to the cinema. You can go to the gym. You can have a coffee, and so on. You have a lot of boutiques. You have a lot of shopping streets, nice shopping streets in big cities. So the situation of competition for department stores changed completely. But they are not changing. They are not going with the time. And now we have e-commerce. This is an additional competition coming on the field. So I think for a department store, it's quite challenging to go into the future. I think they have to get again closer to the clients through their offer, through the entertainment, what they are showing, and so on. So, but I think what you already can see that a lot of department stores, they are renting their square meters to different brands and so on. So I would say department stores at the moment, they are really under pressure. And what they have to do now is really connect e-commerce together with retail. I think this is for them for sure a big opportunity to come back on the field and to play a more important role. But at the moment, you can see everywhere in Europe, these big department stores, they are under pressure, they are closing, and it looks like that this trend will go on when they are not ready and willing now really to take the right decisions and to go to the, let's say, closer with the e-commerce as one possibility. And it's that's what you said. It's about telling a story. People there are not interested just to show a product. They want to tell the story surrounding the product. And I think I read a number: 90% of the clients they are in their friend. They want to gain a stronger position in their community through a product. So it's important what kind of product. What kind of story this product is telling their friends. So I think this is what you already said. This is important to create an ambience where the image of the brand is communicated, where it gives weight to the product, gives weight to the people who buys the product, and therefore the department stores they waited too long to join this development. For example, there is a very big one in Zurich. They even have not opened yet an e-commerce shop, and it's getting really urgent to do that.
Now, since we are on the topic of retail, we have also already discussed the departmental stores. Now, Sachin can contribute on his take, but let me draw an analogy between a departmental store and a marketplace. See, there are so many marketplaces across categories, but when it comes to luxury, there are two marketplaces, according to me. I have studied them. One is Luxe Net-a-Porter, which is owned by Richemont, and the other one is Farfetch. So both are unique in their own way. Both are departmental stores because there are a lot of brands available. But what is unique about each of them is Farfetch is no inventory model. What they do is they direct you to a lot of boutiques. They have 300 brands and more than 5,000 products. Whereas Luxe Net-a-Porter buys inventory, and I was surprised to find that they have all the high-end watches. We tend to believe that high-end products will not be sold. And just to tell you, Sachin, I found Bina Goenka's jewelry costing 200,000 and more on Luxe Net-a-Porter. Now things are really changing, and all that needs to be taken care of is the credibility part and the integrity. If you have a impeccable credibility and track record, no matter what the price, you will be able to sell the product. It may not be sold in quantity, but definitely you'll be able to sell. And things have moved on, you know. It is not just omni-channel. Now, if you are talking to a person from China, Alibaba calls it new retail or unified retail. So things are really evolving. And another thing is, while our jewelry industry is waking up to the opportunity, I'm sure Sachin's company is helping them. But before we talk about e-commerce, there is a term which was shared by the CEO of Reliance brand, Darshan Mehta, he calls it distant selling. Now, distant selling has been happening in the jewelry industry for many years. In fact, it is happening in many product categories. Is what happens is that you go and sell in the consumer's home. But today, what has happened is people have become so familiar with Zoom and the video chat. So the products are shown, on the basis of which shortlisting is done, and the consumer home people go and show them the product, and the deal is concluded. Now this works beautifully because physical retail, distance selling, e-commerce, all into one. Now, as you know that none of the big brands or the luxury brands can afford a store in India's B towns. Now, if you were to take the example of B towns, that is Baramati or Bellary or Bulandshahr, there are people who will buy your products, but they are not in big numbers. Your store will not do well. So you have to reach them. Why? On Zoom, e-commerce channel. I'm not an expert, but definitely Sachin can throw some light on it.
So Anil, I think there are two parts to it. One is what can happen at home, and I think technology is phenomenally changing the future. 5G is coming in. They're talking about 1 terabyte of transmission speed per second. I mean, that's the future. So the extent in which how we will interface will become real life as much. So lots happening there, and loads of changes are happening. You give a great example of Farfetch. Farfetch focuses on luxury retail at home selling. So their model is completely focused on the high end, and that's very different than an Amazon delivery. So they really do a service element in a great, beautiful manner. But if I were to focus on what's happening on retail and what tech is changing there, I think it's important again for us in the business to understand that the consumer, today she's spending perhaps most of her time on a touch screen, and when she walks into a physical store where we have, when you're in that touch screen and you're in a very fluid world, you have access to pretty much everything in the world. When you come to a typical jewelry store, you're almost barred by the entrance, right? When you go inside, the first question asked to you is, "Bhenji, aapko kya chahiye? What do you need so I can transact immediately?" And I think all of that has to change. Technology has to play a role within the retail store as well. So there has to be, self-searching capabilities within the store. That is already passed. This has to be done like today. What about the future? AI is coming in a big manner. Face recognition is already in. So in the Forevermark stores, we're putting in face recognition. What do they do? So if you were to say that, I love this store experience, for example, why would you love it? Because chances are that the retailer knows you by name. He'll give you that personal sort of details, and he knows your coffee style and all of that. Today, I can tell you, certain large-scale retailers, and I have experienced that in London, when I walk into that store, the first greeting in the first 1.5 minutes is with the kind of cappuccino that I like. So that's the level of personalization that technology today can offer. So on the consumer delight side, there's so much going on, and I wish and I pray that our industry takes it on like open arms and collects it. So that's one thing. Also, sorry, Mahul.
No, sure.
Just completing that, and of course also on the back end, the kind of technology that's happening to streamline your businesses and look at your business more scientifically is just incredible. So there will be no space into the future if you're really not on top of the technology and how consumers are accepting you, but really do tangible things that delight them and run your business better.